Some stories don't begin with a mystery. They begin with a memory, one that doesn't belong to the life we know. These are the accounts of children who claim to recall past lives, their words carrying details so precise, so vivid, that they challenge our understanding of memory, identity, and existence itself. These stories have left families, researchers, and skeptics grappling for answers, forcing us to confront questions about consciousness and what it means to live beyond a single lifetime. Below are three extraordinary cases, each unfolding in a different time and place, yet bound by a common thread: children who seem to remember lives they could not have lived. In the early 2000s, in Lafayette, Louisiana, a 2-year-old boy named James Leininger began to wake up screaming. His nightmares were vivid and consistent. A plane engulfed in flames, crashing into the ocean after being shot down by Japanese forces. He would cry out, "Airplane crash, on fire," and repeat a name, James. His parents, Bruce and Andrea, were baffled. They were not a military family, and their home was free of war movies or violent media that might have influenced their son. As months passed, James's behavior grew stranger. He began drawing detailed pictures of fighter planes, labeling parts with terms like Corsair and drop tank, words no toddler should know. He spoke of flying off a ship called the Natoma and mentioned a friend named Jack Larson. The specificity of his stories was startling. He described being a pilot, feeling the heat of the fire, and the sensation of falling into the sea. His parents, devout Christians, were uncomfortable with the idea of past lives, but they couldn't dismiss the precision of his accounts. Bruce, determined to understand, began researching. He discovered that the USS Natoma Bay was a real aircraft carrier that served in the Pacific during World War II. Digging deeper, he found records of a pilot named James Houston Jr., who had been shot down in 1945 during a mission near Iwo Jima. Houston's plane, a Corsair, had caught fire and crashed into the ocean, just as young James described. Even more astonishing, Jack Larson, the friend James mentioned, was a real person, a surviving veteran who had served alongside Houston. Bruce tracked down Larson, now an elderly man, and other Natoma Bay veterans. When shown James's drawings and told of his stories, they were stunned. The details, the type of plane, the ship's name, the mission's location, aligned with Houston's life and death. James even described personal moments, like conversations with Larson, that no one outside the crew could have known. When James was 8, his parents took him to Japan, to the site where Houston's plane had crashed. There, James held a small memorial, tossing flowers into the sea. He stood silently, as if saying goodbye. After that trip, the nightmares stopped. James, now a teenager, rarely speaks of those early years, but his parents remain convinced that something extraordinary happened. Skeptics have offered alternative explanations. Perhaps James overheard stories, or his parents unconsciously influenced him. Yet the Leiningers insist there was no exposure to such specific details, and the veteran's corroboration adds weight to the case. Could a young child's nightmares carry echoes of a life lost decades earlier? In the 1930s, in Delhi, India, a 4-year-old girl named Shanti Devi began to insist that her name was not Shanti. She said her real name was Luji, and she had lived in Mathura, a town 130 kilometers away. She spoke of a husband named Kedar Nath, a house with a yellow gate, and a life that ended during childbirth. Her parents, initially amused, grew concerned as Shanti's stories remained consistent and detailed. She described the layout of Mathura's streets, the jewelry she wore as Luji, and private moments with her husband. The family tried to dismiss it, but Shanti's persistence drew attention. Neighbors and relatives began to listen, and word of her claims spread. Eventually, a local teacher contacted Kedar Nath, the man Shanti named as her husband. To everyone's shock, Kedar confirmed he had been married to a woman named Luji, who died during childbirth a decade earlier. he agreed to meet Shanti. When Shanti was brought to Mathura, she navigated the town with ease, pointing out landmarks and leading the way to a house with a yellow gate. When Kedarnath appeared, Shanti ran to him, addressing him with a familiarity that left onlookers speechless. She recounted details of their life together, private conversations, habits, and even the location of money Luigi had hidden in the house. Kedar, shaken, confirmed every detail. The case caught the attention of Mahatma Gandhi, who recommended a government committee investigate. The committee, composed of scholars and officials, interviewed Shanti, her family, and Kedar. They visited Mathura, verifying the accuracy of her descriptions. Their report, published in 1936, concluded that no ordinary explanation, fraud, coincidence, or suggestion could account for Shanti's knowledge. As Shanti grew into adulthood, she stopped speaking of Luigi's life. She lived quietly, avoiding the spotlight, but her story became a cornerstone of reincarnation research in India and beyond. For those who witnessed it, the case was unforgettable, a child's memories bridging two lives in a way that defied logic. In the early 2000s, in Glasgow, Scotland, a young boy named Cameron Macaulay began sharing extraordinary stories that captivated his family and puzzled experts. Barely old enough to form full sentences, Cameron spoke vividly of a life he claimed to have lived on the remote Isle of Barra, over 200 miles from his home. His accounts were not fleeting childish imaginings, but detailed, emotional, and strikingly consistent, sparking curiosity and concern from those around him. Cameron described a white house by the sea, where he said he had lived with his Barra mom and a black and white dog. He spoke of a beach where airplanes landed, a sight that fascinated him, and recalled a father who had tragically died in a car accident. These memories were not vague. They were rich with specifics, names, places, and feelings. He expressed a deep longing for his Barra mom, often crying for her and the life he claimed to have left behind. His mother, Norma, found his stories unsettling, as Cameron had never been to Barra, nor had he been exposed to information about the island. Puzzled and seeking answers, Norma reached out to professionals. The family's story caught the attention of a documentary team and Dr. Jim Tucker, a child psychiatrist from the University of Virginia who specialized in studying past life memories in children. Dr. Tucker, intrigued by the clarity and persistence of Cameron's claims, saw parallels with other cases he had investigated. He noted that Cameron's memories contained hallmarks of credible past life reports, specific details, emotional depth, and information seemingly beyond the child's lived experience. To explore further, the family, accompanied by Dr. Tucker and the documentary crew, traveled to Barra. For a young boy who had never visited the island, Cameron's behavior was astonishing. He appeared immediately at ease, as if returning to a familiar place. He pointed out landmarks and even offered directions, leading the group to a white house by the beach that closely matched his descriptions. The house, they learned, had belonged to a family named Robertson, a detail Cameron had mentioned in his stories. He also recognized the beach where planes landed, a reference to Barra's unique airport, one of the few in the world where scheduled flights use a tidal beach runway. While not every detail could be fully verified, many of Cameron's statements aligned with real places, people, and events on Barra. The Robertson family had indeed lived in the house he described, though some specifics like the car accident were harder to confirm. Dr. Tucker emphasized that Cameron's case was compelling due to its consistency and the emotional weight of his memories. The boy's longing for his other life was palpable, and his familiarity with Barra suggested knowledge beyond what a young child from Glasgow could reasonably possess. As Cameron grew older, his memories of Barra began to fade, a common pattern in such cases. His case remains a haunting reminder of the mysteries that linger at the edges of human experience, where memory, identity, and the past intertwine in ways we may never fully understand.